Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. It is a Monday edition of the show. Unfortunately, it is not a Victory Monday as the Bucs lost 20-6. It is a roll call Monday, though, as we do
There we go.
on every Monday show. We'll get into that a little bit later, about 20 minutes from now. But today we're going to try to focus on some of the bright spots from the Bucs loss to the Lions. I know they were few and far between, but there are a couple of things that we could point to that says, hey, the Bucs are still going in the right direction somewhat. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com, SR, Scott Reynolds. And Scott, I think we compared the Lions a little bit in some degree to the Eagles in terms of a litmus test.
Yeah.
Building against a better team and going up against the Eagles on Monday night a couple of weeks ago. We came on the show the next day and felt a little bit better after having 24 hours or 18 hours, whatever it is now, from that last game. How do we feel now, looking back, watching the game again, thinking it over? How do we feel now about the Buccaneers hours later from their defeat to the Lions?
Well, I spent most of this mid-morning, early afternoon going back and looking at the TV copy, the All-22. I don't have that yet, but there were some missed opportunities on offense, and I agree wholeheartedly with Baker Mayfield. I thought he sucked. He did. He admitted it, and he really did. It just wasn't a great game from Baker, and that's unfortunate because there were some opportunities there for him to make some plays. I think based upon the vantage point and the viewpoint that you can at least see from the TV copy, you go back and you look at that interception, the tip pass that Will Harris grabbed and took the ball away. I don't know if it's a touchdown, if Mike Evans can run 80 yards for a touchdown, but it's a huge, massive play, right? I don't know if he gets caught from behind, but it's a massive momentum changing, statistical changing play for the Bucs offense because he's wide open by all intents and purposes. From the copy that I've seen on TV, there was not another defender there. The Lions safety had come up, kind of bit on play action. Evans is behind him, wide open. So, I think initially you look at Dave Canales and say, not a great game, but we just found so many instances, whether it's the overthrows, right, to Trey Palmer. Those were two big plays where the job of the offensive coordinator is to get guys open, right, to scheme guys open, and Baker's got to hit them. If he hits one or both of those, that's we're talking touchdowns here, right? And touchdowns in a game that the Bucs only scored 2 field goals against a very, very, very good Lions defense. Okay, let's keep that in mind. The Lions are on top of the NFC right now with the Eagles, right? They're both 5-1. And Matt, they lost to both of these teams. The Bucs are not at that level yet. But the thing to understand about the Lions is we saw strides from them last year, right? This was a 9-8 team that just missed the playoffs. So they were better than the Buccaneers last year. They just missed the playoffs by 1 game. And I think that was this is year 2 of Ben Johnson's offense, right? With Jared Goff. Goff's been in Detroit now for a couple of years, but this is year 2 with him as the play caller. This is year 3 of Aaron Glenn's defense. So what we're seeing is continuity. We're seeing what the Buccaneers aspire to be. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe if this team stays together and grows and they add more pieces in the draft and free agency, the Buccaneers can take the next step next year. But we've said it before, Matt, these fans have got to readjust their expectations. Can they beat the Lions? Yes, on any given Sunday. Matt, we saw your New York Jets take down the mighty Philadelphia Eagles. We saw a wounded 49ers team go into Cleveland and get bitten by the dogs in the dog pound and lose to PJ Walker. Sound familiar? I'm just saying. I'm just saying, like, yes, they could have beaten the Lions yesterday, but they would have had to have played an almost perfect game with the talent and the roster they have right now. and they would have had to have had the Lions probably play a little bit less than perfect. The Lions executed phenomenally on offense and defense, and the refs really helped them out with a bunch of non-holding calls and non-blocking the back calls on those screens. But this is a Buccaneer team, Matt, that can and should beat the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers, and win the division. Are they going to do any damage against the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Lions? Right now, I can't say they are.
Yeah, and it hurts
and
too.
That's okay. That's okay because they're not there yet. Okay,
exactly. I'm very curious. It almost hurts the Bucs that the Bills played so bad on Sunday Night Football too. They ended up winning, but regardless of whether or not the Bills would have won when they defeated the Giants, they're not going to be feeling good about how they played. So I think they're going to have that in mind when they do play the Bucs in 2 weeks. I'm actually very curious what the Pewter people think. So feel free to throw it in the comments. What is your realistic, legitimate expectations for the Bucs moving forward? Do you think that they're going to win the division, get into the wild card? If you want to throw in a record or whatever, that's totally fine too.
Right.
And I think what didn't help the Bucs is, and I think you've seen it in the first couple games that the Bucs have won, the ball has bounced their way at times. The Saints game, Baker throws an interception, Antoine Winfield Jr. forces the fumble right after. That's the ball bouncing the right way for the Bucs. They almost had that against Detroit. Baker gets intercepted. Remember that 3rd and goal play, Vita Vea forced a fumble, but the running back happened to jump right back on it. The ball didn't go the way of the Bucs' favor in that sense, in that opportunity. And when you're playing a team such as the Lions, which is kind of crazy to think just when you look at the microcosm of the Detroit Lions as an organization, you need those bounces, and the Bucs didn't necessarily get it. And Dave Canales, if you want to give him a lot of blame for the run game, and I think he definitely should shoulder a lot of that blame, not all of it, but a lot of it, you do have to point out that, Scott, you were spot on. The guys were open. Mike Evans was wide open on that play that got tipped for an interception. Baker overthrew Trey Palmer, and that's going to come with the territory of Baker Mayfield. For all the things you like about him, he's also smaller in stature. We saw it all during training camp. He's susceptible to getting the football tipped, and it just reared its ugly head in that situation. And I think that hurts on the deep ball at times too, because that was something, again, in training camp, and I know that feels like light years ago. But both Bucs quarterbacks, whether it was Kyle Trask, and we'll get to Zachary's super chat. We got a couple super chats. We'll get to that in just a moment. Both quarterbacks struggled with the deep ball in training camp. And I think for Baker, part of it is because of his size, because he's smaller. He sometimes has to gear up, especially with the defenders in his face. He has to gear up and rifle that ball, and that's why you see the overthrows like we got with the plays to Trey Palmer. And those little plays would change the magnitude of that game. But we got a super chat. Let's start off with Zachary Jarvis. Thanks, Zachary, for the $4.99 super chat, who says, why aren't we running more man-to-man defense? Isn't that the strength of our secondary? I keep seeing us play soft zones, and it kills us every time. Yeah, this has been one of the biggest criticisms of not just this season, but the Todd Bowles era as a defensive play caller. He fears allowing the big play, and he can kind of live with getting dinked and dunked all the way down the field. It doesn't help when you're down 14 and you punt it, and the Lions can just dink and dunk and kill 6 minutes off of the clock. But what's annoying is that there's still communication issues, regardless of whether they're playing zone or man. And it's like, well, if you're still allowing a touchdown, what does it really matter what type of defense you play? Yeah,
and I think the thing too is a lot of times when you say man to man, I mean, a lot of times people are thinking outside on cornerbacks and receivers. And I think when the Bucs are playing cover 1 or cover 3, you're essentially playing man defense there. And you don't have safety help over the top. So it's tough when you sit there and say, all right, we'll go up and play press man coverage. Well, if you get beat, if you lose a step at the line of scrimmage, all of a sudden you have no help over the top, and it can be a huge play if your quarterback hits the receiver, right? I mean, Baker didn't hit his guy, Trey Palmer, but then we did see, Jameson Williams caught a perfect pass from Jared Goff, and Ryan Neal's right there. You can see Ryan Neal's hand in there. Like, he's got to make that play. I mean, it's like, both these guys get paid. One of them's a first-round draft pick, and one of them's an undrafted free agent who's on his second team. And I'm not necessarily throwing shade at Ryan Neal, but it's like, if you want to get paid, if you want the big payday, you've got to make that play.
Yeah.
You're right there to do it. You've got to make that play. And he didn't. And Jamison Williams did. And that was a big part of the difference in the game. The Lions made their plays when they were presented with them. The Buccaneers didn't. And that's what good teams do. They make the plays. Just like the Buccaneers made these type of plays against New Orleans, right? When they played the Saints before the bye week, and the Saints didn't. So the Saints fans are feeling just like the Buccaneer fans are feeling right now a couple weeks ago after that loss to Tampa Bay, right? And so, sometimes you get a game, Matt, where both teams are playing amazing football, right? And that happens sometimes where both teams bring their A games, and it just comes down to the last possession, right? It's one play differential. Maybe it's a field goal, maybe it's a fourth down stop, whatever it is, and that decides the game. This was a game where the Lions just made more plays than the Bucs did. And 2 weeks ago, we saw the Bucs make more plays than the Saints did. And so the story on Sunday is going to be which team's going to make more plays, the Bucs or the Falcons. That's what it comes down to. This is a playmaker league.
Yeah.
And you got to put yourself in position to make plays, and then you got to make them when those opportunities are there. Will Harris jumped and caught that interception. There were 2 tip passes that Devin White dove for and missed on one. They were just out, it was just too far out. And Levante David missed another one. So that's the way the ball bounces. You said in New Orleans, Antoine Winfield punches the ball out, recovers the fumble. The Bucs, cash in on a touchdown. Sometimes that's the way the ball bounces. It didn't bounce the Bucs way yesterday, and they didn't create enough of their own action at the same time.
And you talk about playmakers. I was actually quite surprised. We talked about Zion McCollum a lot. We've asked the coaches about, should he, is he working his way onto the field just from how well he's played? The coaches have said we got to find ways to get him onto the field. You even offered up the idea of having a package with all 3 corners on the field. Zion McCollum played 3% of the snaps on defense. 3%. I was actually very surprised by that, considering how the Lions were attacking the Bucs defensively, especially after gaining that lead. It almost felt like if you had a playmaker like Zion on there with that speed, especially going up against Amon-Ra St. Brown, would have been nice to deploy him, but the Bucs did not go in that direction.
And I think really where the Bucs struggled the most was in the middle of the field in the zones there rather than outside. I thought Jamel Dean had a bounce back game, didn't play great, but didn't play as poorly as he had at the beginning of the season. But Jared Goff, man, he gets rid of the ball so quickly. The Buccaneers ended up doing what they wanted to do. They took away the Lions running game. They knocked David Montgomery out of the game. And the Lions just didn't run it. And Jared Goff said, that's fine. I'll throw receiver screens and I'll just, throw quick underneath passes and pick up 5 yards. And that's just kind of how they did it. And as great as Levante David played and as well as Devin White may have played, they didn't get enough pass breakups on some of those. It was just a little bit too much of a cushion. But at the same time, they were giving up 5 yards and Jared Goff was just taking it. So Goff was taking what the Bucs defense was offering up, and he just was dealing, and he made it work. And when you have, when you've got referees that are not going to call, offensive holding. I mean, like this is holding, right? You're allowed to.
He's hugging him.
He's hugging it. Yes, he's tackling Kalijah Kancey. And you can see Jared Goff right there, and you can see Kalijah Kancey wants to sack Jared Goff, but he can't. He's literally being held. So there were a ton of instances like that. It was one of those games. I'm sure Lions fans will point out that the fact that maybe Aiden Hutchinson, who had a very, very quiet game, another really strong game from Luke Gedeke, by the way. But they probably are chirping about not getting some holding calls as well. I think that was one of the games where the refs kind of swallowed the whistle, unless it's Mike Evans' offensive pass interference, which Mike, you can't extend the arms and push the guy to the ground. They are going to call that if it's that obvious. But
one last thing I'll say about just Jared Goff real quick. Jared Goff has been Geno Smith before the Geno Smith story. Like, remember, he got traded from LA and everyone's like, wow, what a big upgrade for the Rams. And it paid off for them. They won the Super Bowl. But everyone thought the Lions are going to be done. Jared Goff's career was done. And he's been great the last 2 seasons. But Geno got a lot of the attention. But anyway, KGH for life. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, In Todd Bowles' pursuit to disguise coverages, it seems more confusion occurs on defense. There is a pattern of this. There are definitely points in the season. Obviously, the most glaring was against Matthew Stafford and the Rams that allowed the Rams to win that game late after the Bucs had tied it up in the divisional round. I mean, there are certainly points during the season that you can look at. The Jordan Addison touchdown in week 1 against the Vikings was a similar situation. With all of that said, I think most Bucs fans would sign up for how this defense has played and how the entire defense has played again in the era of Todd Bowles. So if that's the risk that you run from time to time, I think you can live with it. It just sucks in the moment when those types of plays happen. Miscommunication happens with every single team. It happened to the Lions when Mike Evans was wide open, but again, the ball bounced their way with getting the tip. It'll happen from time to time. I would still take Todd Bowles and the defense he runs over a majority of the NFL.
Yeah. Mark Fisher here, he always gives us some donations. We appreciate this in lieu of a super chat. Hey, guys, D only gave up 20 points to a Lions team that was scoring 30. That's good, no? Even Neal hit the ball on the touchdown a la Winfield. I mean, I went back and looked. I was more critical of the defense last night because I'm a little bit more defensive minded. I hate seeing 56% completion percentage. I hate seeing touchdowns on 3rd and 10 and 3rd and 13 situations. The defense actually played better than I initially thought after watching the film, and I'm going to get into that when I have a little rant here in 2 minutes during the roll call today at 4:20. But again, holding a team 10 points under the scoring average, and again, we're talking about an elite team here. Right. I think the Buccaneers, they've given up, what's their highest point total? 25 points to the Eagles, Matt?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Todd Bowles' defense is doing its job. And there are some bright spots really emerging there. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But I do think that the defense played well enough to win. This is a touchdown league. You got to score touchdowns, no doubt about it. And Buccaneer fans, wow. I mean, Matt, you were there for that Monday night game. 60% Eagle fans, right?
Yeah.
Probably 50 to 60%
at
Raymond James Stadium. It was easily 45% Lions fans. That whole lower bowl on the west side of the stadium was just
a lot of blue.
Yeah.
Honolulu blues.
Honolulu blue. Yeah. Appreciate the super chat there, Kyle. And
I see a lot of people getting angry at it. I don't really know what the answer is. The reality is that the state of Florida in general, you have a lot of people that have moved here from other places and they bring their fandom with it.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks, but I don't know. I don't really know what the answer is to it. I mean, if you start your families here and then your children become fans of the Bucs, I guess that's one way. But even your son's not a Bucs fan. So.
No, because there was 11 years where the team was horrible.
Yeah.
Right?
So
and that's happened twice now, Matt. It happened before Tony Dungy got there, right? And then it's happened for the Raheem Morris, Greg Schiano, Dirk Cutter years. That we're talking 2 decades, right?
Yeah.
Of kids being born, and then at 10 years old, they have their team, right? They've played Madden enough. They've got their team by age 10. So when the Buccaneers finally get good again, once every decade, then it's too late because
they just have to be a sustainable winner. Because if you keep winning, people get on the bandwagon, like the casual fans. The diehards will always be there, but it's all about getting the casuals into the building. But
you're right.
One thing that's not casual is the participation of our pewter people when it comes to every Monday at 4:20 or 4:21 in this case, and that is roll call, baby. That's right. We love the pewter people. We love our fans. And this is just a fun way when we do roll call each Monday. It's a great way to just get more involved with the pewter people and interact with everybody. So what we do, if you're new to the show, thank you for watching for the first time. If you're new to the show, what we do every Monday at 4:20, we do this thing called roll call, where one of us goes on a diatribe on a specific Bucs topic that we want to get into. And while one of us is speaking about that, Scott said he had something to talk about today. So while Scott is talking about whatever's on his mind about the Buccaneers, I will be in the comments. If you guys want to start putting the location of where you guys are watching from, whether it's Tampa, whether it's, I don't know, Idaho, wherever it could be, Let us know the location where you are watching from, and we will make sure that we put it on the screen and just get an idea of where all of our awesome fans are watching from, starting off with Gary, who is watching in Sarasota. So
Yeah.
Scott, take it away.
This defensive front, I think, is starting to come together now. I went back and I watched the film. Shaq Barrett played hard. JTS, I thought, had a better game when I went back and watched the film than I initially saw. And it's tough, right? You have one set of eyes. You're trying to watch the ball, right? Because you have to report on a game. And then you're also trying to, split time between 11 guys. What's Ryan Neal doing? What's JTS doing? How's Kalijah Kancey doing, right? How's Jamel Dean doing in his return to action, right? So it's tough on a play-by-play basis when you're watching a game live to really assess the performance. But Kalijah Kancey had a hell of a game. He really did. Logan Hall, I thought, really played well. This might have been his best complete game. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, there's some signs of life here, folks. And Vita Vea was a game wrecker. We didn't see it as much in terms of the pass rush, but in shutting down the run, he did a very credible job. Let's not forget Frank Ragnow is a pretty damn good center as well, former first-round pick himself. So the thing I like about this unit, though, is starting to come together. You have to remember, Logan Hall was drafted as a project. He's now closer to being a 300-pounder. He played at 265 pounds just 2 years ago at Houston. Okay, so he's got a different body he's playing in now, and it takes some getting used to. He was not a starter last year. He is now. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka did not play football at all in 2020. He basically played 1 year at Washington, 2019. Then COVID hit. The Pac-12 only played 4 games. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka didn't play any. He, like a lot of college football players that year, opted out and went for the draft. Then he was a situational type player as a rookie. Remember, that was the year that Jason Pierre-Paul got hurt. And so he couldn't go inside and nickel rush the way that he was so effective in doing so. So that role fell onto Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. We saw him as the nickel rusher inside a lot. So here you're drafting a 21-year-old kid who really played 1 year in college, who needs to become more of an NFL caliber pass rusher / edge rusher. And he spent, I want to say, probably a third to a half of his snaps as a rookie inside playing in nickel rush situations. So he didn't get the reps that he needed to really grow and flourish as an edge rusher. I'm not making excuses. This is all fact. Another fact is he's on his third outside linebackers coach. That can be a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing that he can add more tools and grab some more wisdom from each coach he's listened to. A bad thing is maybe each coach wants him to do something a little bit differently. But my point is, we're seeing some signs of life from Logan Hall. We're seeing some signs of life for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Matt and Peter people, as Kalijah Kancey told me in the locker room last night, the thing about Kalijah Kancey's first game, and I'm not going to say that those 11 snaps in Minnesota in week 1 was really even his first action. That was just a blip. It was a blur. He said, this is my preseason, right? He missed all of training camp. He missed all of the preseason. He missed the entire first month of his regular season. So these next 4 games, you talk about on-the-job training. You talk about the learning curve. It's steep for Kalijah Kancey. And I thought that he really aced his first exam. I wouldn't say he got an A, but I would say he got an A for effort.
Yeah.
And the production was there. The disruption was there. Again, I don't know what Pro Football Focus saw in giving him and Levante David such poor grades. I take PFF with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
You felt Kalijah Kancey's presence. You felt Levante David's presence in that game. And right now, I'm telling you, Kalijah Kancey is probably not the project that Logan Hall and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka are. I think this kid is closer to being a finished product than most people realize. He was a first rounder after all, a mid-first rounder, and that makes a difference. But the thing about Kalijah Kancey is this guy, he's the best is yet to come. He is still learning. He is behind the 8 ball, and we're going to have to wait and see how this guy develops. But I thought he had a really, really strong performance yesterday.
Yeah, Todd Bowles today, I asked him what he thought of Todd Bowles' performance, what he thought of Kalijah Cansey's performance, and he described Kalijah Cansey's performance as disruptive, which I thought was a good word to use. I mean, this was his first game where he played into the second half, and he recorded a sack in his first game. I mean, he was absolutely everywhere, which for Bucs fans, you got to be really happy about that. Real quick, again, another awesome turnout from all the Pewter people in roll call today. So what I want to start doing for each Monday is just give a quick shout out to a couple of people based on the location. I want to do one from the state of Florida, one from the United States, and then one internationally as well, because we got people from all over. So I don't want to just identify one person, and but we'll do this each week. So feel free to keep putting in your locations. Awesome. Don't lie about the locations either. I'm on to some of you when you're saying all these random spots. But shout out to Kels808, watching from Hawaii. That is so cool to see. Nice. I was up late watching that Hawaii college football game on Saturday. Bill Vincent watching from Gulf Breeze, Florida, and Enoch Noel watching from Thomas Virgin Islands. So again, shout out to all the Pewter people watching from far and wide, watching the Pewter Report podcast, which of course, Pewter Report podcast is brought to you by Celsius, the official sponsor of PewterReport.com. In the Pewter Game Day show, we had another great turnout for that game yesterday, despite the way how the Bucs played in it. Celsius is fantastic. Check out all their flavors. The newest one is the Cosmic Vibe, but you can't go wrong with any of them out there, whether it's the Oasis Vibe, the Arctic Vibe, sparkling lemon lime, strawberry lemonade is one of my favorites. The watermelon, the strawberry acai is great as well. There's no sugar, no crash or jitters that you might get with another energy drink out there. So if you want to know where to find Celsius energy drinks, go to the store locator, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest geographical location where you can pick one up. It could be your local Walmart. It could be your local Target or your 7-Eleven. Maybe you'll see Justin Chase there or Jamar Chase there. It could be a health and fitness store, or if you're lucky enough, it might just be your bodega. And once you keep going to your bodega and you're like, I love you, bodega, and I love Celsius, but I need more. I can't just deal with one or two cans. That's when you start buying it in bulk. Go to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save. I would recommend getting the variety pack because there's so many great flavors. You see it on the screen right there. And variety is the spice of life. So go to Amazon, do the subscribe and save. You can set it up to get it sent to your residence whenever you want. It could be a week, quarterly, monthly, yearly, whenever you want. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Make Celsius your number one pick. All right, we have a lot more super chats to get to.
Yeah, we do,
Scott. So let's rock and roll with the super chats, starting off with Zachary Jarvis again. Thank you very much, Zachary, with the $9.99 super chat, who says, I like Dave Candles. I think you mean Canales. I like Dave Canales a lot, but I'm kind of worried that he wants to be, quote, stubborn running the ball. It doesn't work at all. Hopefully it gets better throughout the season. So I think, go ahead.
I don't think he was stubborn running the ball yesterday. I think they had 17 rushes. I don't think that he really forced the issue, maybe the way he did against, say, the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they tried some different things. They tried some screens. I mean, here's a prime example, folks. And I don't have these video clips handy, but you can go back and watch. There's a quick little play where Baker Mayfield throws a quick wide receiver screen out to Devin Tompkins, right? And Raheem Jarrett completely misses the block. He waits on it, and then DT gets tackled for a 1 or 2 yard loss. If Raheem Jarrett had stalk blocked and attacked, and I'll tell you what, the Lions, man, their screen game is on point. Their screen game is tight. Those little Lions wide receivers and tight ends, they will attack. They don't wait. They don't sit there and do stalk blocks. They go out there and just absolutely maul and push and sometimes block in the back. But they're a very good screen team. I think Tampa Bay, that's an instance where if DT catches the ball and he has a clean alley, he can hit the sidelines, run out of bounds, get 10 to 12 yards. Instead, it's a 2 yard loss, right? And that's a huge thing. Instead of moving the chains, it's now 2nd and 12, Matt. I mean, it's little things like that that are that are holding this offense back. And sometimes, we look at it and say, well, the offensive line needs to do this. Sometimes it's the tight ends, Matt, in the running game that don't do their job. I sent a clip in the group chat about Rachaad White.
Yeah.
right? Where there was a massive hole to the right,
Gigantic.
and then the left side completely to the sidelines is blocked. Filer, Tristan Wirfs, so then Kate Otten and Mike Evans were out there. Boom, boom, boom. There is an alleyway to the sidelines down the left. There's a massive hole to the right. What does Rachaad White do? Goes right into the middle of the offensive line for a 1-yard gain.
And the way that Rachaad was facing too, he looked and he saw the open hole too, and he just didn't run to it. Sometimes by design, you're all the way to one side, you can't turn your head 180 and look the other way. But he had the vision to at least identify that the hole was open, and he just didn't go to it. Yeah, I think this was more just about the execution of the runs up the middle. I don't think they overdid it with running the football by any means. And it's so funny that you mentioned the screens, because as I was pulling up to the Bucs facility today, as I'm pulling into the parking spot, I had in my head, I was thinking, it's so funny. Last season, we kept talking about how the Bucs screen too much, and they just kept throwing to the Chris Godwin with nothing. And now it's like, wow, the Bucs don't screen at all, or they do it so much less than even now we want them to screen more. Just screen it the right way. Be deliberate with it. Doesn't have to be 1,000 times, but they've kind of just abandoned the screen game entirely.
Yeah, and there was a beautifully set up screen, very similar to the Lions concept, right? Where you saw Amon-Ra St. Brown, pick up a huge gain on a screen pass on third down. The Bucs were set up to do the exact same thing. Actually, had it blocked well and everything. It just that I want to say it was Akwara. The edge rusher got his hand up and knocked the pass down. I mean, if that's completed, that's probably a huge gain. I want to say it was to Trey Palmer or Devin Tompkins. One of those two guys would have had at least a first down. And instead, that wasn't the case. Matt Bucs fan, $5 super chat. Thank you. I feel like our best pass rushers are Winfield and Vea. Where's their outside linebackers? Joe Tryon-Shoyinka technically had a sack, and he earned it. He beat his guy, Taylor Decker, with an inside move and then pursued Jared Goff, took the right angle, Matt, and forced Goff out of bounds for probably a half a yard loss. Still counts as a sack. Start to finish, it was a great rush by JTS. He had a couple of other good ones. There was an amazing stunt between Logan Hall and JTS, and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka came right inside and had Jared Goff
dead to rights
and just overran him. And Goff saw him and just sidestepped him. And sometimes you come in too fast and you can't slam the brakes on. Joe should have had at least 2 sacks in the game. I think we're starting to see some signs of life. We need to see it on a more consistent basis. Sometimes it's not about the sacks. Sometimes it's about the pressures. I think Elijah Cansey, and Matt, you and I have said it before, he is going to create opportunities with immediate pressure to where it's going to flush some of these quarterbacks left or right, and you're going to see some cleanup sacks from JTS and from Shaq or Yaya Diaby and Anthony Nelson.
And Todd Bowles said of the outside linebackers, he said this is probably Joe Tryon-Shoyinka's most complete game of the season, because I thought he did a really, really good job in terms of stopping the run. And then he also had a lot of praise. You had mentioned Shaq Barrett before. Todd Bowles did say that he thought Shaq played really well and thought Shaq played hard, especially given the the illness that he was dealing with during the week. So I understand the frustration of Bucs fans. You see guys like TJ Watt and players such of that caliber dominating games, and the Bucs haven't had that from their outside linebackers by any means, but could be coming. Mason DeBoard, thank you very much for the $10 super chat. Says punt on 4th and 2 was too conservative. Defense is playing better than the offense for sure, but I would have liked to see some stones when we're down 2 scores. Mason, I'm in full agreement. I get the trust in your defense, but you can't win if you don't have the ball in your hands. And especially later on in the game, the Bucs weren't getting those 3-and-out stops that the defense has gotten before in other games. Especially against a really good team like the Lions, you can't give them more possessions because odds are they're going to hurt you, and that's exactly what Detroit did. They didn't get points on that drive, but they essentially closed the game out because the Bucs didn't really get the ball until 3 minutes left. And when you have the ball with 3 minutes remaining, down 14, and you haven't even scored a touchdown yet in the game, I might add, you were really asking a lot from not just your defense, but for your offense too, to score with even less time.
I think if Todd Bowles had maybe 7, 8 minutes left on the clock rather than over 10, he might have gone for it. I think in his mind, he's hoping, all right, we punt the ball, Jake pins him back, we go 3 and out, we get the ball back with about 9 minutes left, right? Maybe at our own 30, 40-yard line. And then we get a touchdown, stop them on defense. It's a one-score game, get the ball back and win. In theory, I understand it. If there was less time on the clock, I think Bowles would have been more inclined to go for it. But he trusted the side of the ball that was playing better at the time, which was his defense. And it just didn't work, right? I mean, Jared Goff didn't even have a running game at that point in time. He just dinked and dunked, and they just picked up third downs, and away they went.
Is that one of the, just curious to get your opinion, is that one of the detractors of having a defensive coach as a head coach?
Yes.
Because if you have an offensive coach, they're probably like, screw it, I trust my offense. We're going to score. And so that's one of the downfalls of having a defensive coach.
It is, because you have a little bit too much confidence in your side of the ball. And, trust and confidence, they're a good thing, but sometimes overconfidence, it can be a bad thing. And his defense didn't get that 3 and out or the takeaway to really pay dividends for the head coach's call, for sure.
Yeah. Gino Sisson with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Gino. Says, when is running back Chase Edmonds projected to return? I believe he has one more week, and then he will come off the short-term IR. And
they need him, Matt.
They definitely do need him. I think he provides the biggest spark as a running back right now, and has been very limited. But I still have that run that he had in the Bears game in my head because it was one of their best runs of the season. It was only for like 12 or 15 yards, but that's obviously a big indicator of how much this run game has struggled this season. And we do have video of it, so I can play it. But there were a lot of questions geared towards the running game today. And why is Keyshawn Vaughn getting not just one less snap than Rachaad White, but in terms of rushing attempts, but why is he getting the carries over Sean Tucker, who was such a bright spot in the preseason? Not to mention, he played for Syracuse. He probably would have been pumped to play in orange. I mean, he did dress, but a lot of questions.
They're the Orangemen after all, right?
Exactly. So a lot of questions about the run game. So let's get to it. Todd Bowles answered a ton of things. Why the team is struggling. Are they going to look at someone else? Everything with Keyshawn Vaughn and Sean Tucker. A little bit about Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, too, if they need to get involved more. But here's Todd Bowles from today discussing the Bucs' porous run game.
Why is Keyshawn Vaughn getting more rushing attempts and carries than Sean Tucker?
He had a good week of practice. He had a good couple weeks. Sean got a couple plays in the game. We wanted to see Keyshawn more. He's taking advantage of his opportunities. It'll probably flip-flop like that in the entire season. We'll see. Well, we're not getting it done. Sometimes it's a technique thing. Sometimes we miss a block here and there. So as a group, we got to do a better job.
Can you get by with those two as your backup running backs, or at least until Edmonds comes back?
I don't think it's their fault that we're in the bottom of the NFL as far as rushing. I mean, it's a group thing. We got to run the ball better. We got to block it better. We got to rush it better.
Games in, but 18 points a game is not going to win many games in this league.
No, it's not, and we'll get better at it. I mean, like you said, it's 5 games in, and we had a clunker yesterday, no doubt about that. We want to score touchdowns in this league. We didn't score touchdowns, and we'll get better at it. We'll work at it, and we'll get better.
Do you feel like you're running the offense like I would? A layman, you'd say Mike Evans, Chris Godwin are your 2 best players, but I'm not sure that all the targets are going to them. I know defense has something to do with that. Just are you featuring the right guys in terms of where the plays need to be designed for these guys?
Well, it's easier said than done. You want to feature the right guys, but you also want to include everybody as well. I think we can expand on that, and we will.
Okay. Become more of a focal point if you can't run it very well, or you're last in the league again. Should you do it a different way?
Well, you don't want to hit your head up against a brick wall. Obviously, if they're stacking the box and they give you the pass play every time, you want to take the pass play. And I think we've been doing a good job at that. We can do a better job at it as far as that opening up the run game and us spreading them out a little bit more. And we're going to work on that this week.
There's something I have to disagree with Todd Bowles, going back to Keyshawn Vaughn and Sean Tucker. He said
Yeah, I agree.
Keyshawn is taking advantage of his opportunities. I mean, he's
No,
had
he's not.
15 rushes for 25 yards.
Yeah.
That's whatever that comes out to, 1 point whatever yards
Yeah.
per
It's
attempt.
1.7.
Yeah.
Which is technically more than Sean Tucker's 1.5, Matt. So
Yeah.
maybe Todd Bowles is looking at analytics. Well, not really analytics, but just statistics and saying, well, I'm going to go with the guy that gives me 1.7 yards as opposed to 1.5. Listen, I wrote about this in the Bucs mailbag today. Had some really good questions in the Bucs mailbag. Make sure you check that out on pewterreport.com. I don't see a starting running back on this team, Matt. I don't see a guy that's really capable of being RB1. I think Rachaad White at this stage of his career is a good complementary back. I think if this team cuts Keyshawn Vaughn tomorrow, he is not even signed. I don't think that he's signed by anybody. I don't think anybody would want him. So why is he getting the number 2 carries here behind Rachaad White? It doesn't make sense to me. Javonte Williams might be a fire sale going on in Denver. Rashad Penny is buried on the Eagles depth chart. Both of those guys would come super cheap. Dalvin Cook is not attainable because he would make more money than the Bucs have cap room right now. They're out of cap room for the year. So, but Javonte Williams in Denver, if there's a fire sale there, if Sean Payton wants a plethora of draft picks to hit the restart button next year, they've got a stable of backs there. He's not beholden to Williams. He didn't draft him. I love the kid coming out of North Carolina a couple of years ago. He had Michael Carter, who went to the Jets. It was an interesting 1-2 punch for the Tar Heels. And Rashad Penny, I loved him coming out of San Diego State. He's largely underwhelmed, but in the 2 years he was healthy with Seattle, he averaged over 6 yards a carry. He knows the offense. He was in it for 5 years. He struggled with injuries. Chase Edmonds missed time in the offseason, Matt, during the OTAs. He missed time in the preseason.
Yeah, he gets injured a lot.
So you need another running back because I don't know that Sean Tucker is the answer, and I certainly know that Keyshawn Vaughn isn't the answer. I wouldn't mind seeing Jason Light make a day 3 trade with a pick and get a guy like Penny or Williams to challenge Rachaad White and come in and learn this offense. And speaking of the running game, we got a $5 super chat from Ward Burns.
Yeah, and get to Ward in 1 second. I'll just say the only problem is they might not even make a move until 3 weeks from now, because if they don't make a move this Sunday, then you play on Thursday. You're not really going to bring in a guy and add him to the offense that quickly. So anyway, Ward, thank you for the $5 super chat, who says, if we start a game in shotgun, spread out, pass heavy, 2-minute offense successfully, it will open up the run like your local bodega at 5 a.m.
Bodega.
So I was talking with Josh Capo on the Pewter Game Day show yesterday, and Josh is a huge advocate of throwing to set up the run.
Me too.
And I think, first of all, I agree with that. But I think it's even more important from what we've seen from the Bucs run game.
Yeah.
You have to mix it up one way or another. And I think so many of those run games or run plays, the Bucs are set up with 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 12, So what's the harm? And obviously you don't want to get into 3rd down every single time, but how many times do the Bucs have 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, anything like that? You know what helps that out? Play action, which I think the Bucs have always been pretty efficient in executing play action.
And Matt, to your point, you're exactly right. We saw them in New Orleans come out throwing the ball to set up the run.
Yeah.
The run was more of like an organically grown part of their offense in New Orleans. And as a result, they had 114 yards on the ground. So it's like, you don't have to force feed the run game to have it, appear. It's not going to magically appear. Right now, I think everybody agrees the offensive line is way far ahead in terms of pass protection. I mean,
and who would have thought?
Aiden Hutchinson was invisible largely yesterday, right? I mean, they didn't really get to Baker Mayfield that much at all. They had to blitz him with linebacker and nickels to even get pressure on Baker. But play to your strength, right? I mean, pass protect, throw the ball, but Baker's got to hit him. Baker had an off day yesterday. He sucked, as he said it, and it's true.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're singing a different tune if Baker hits 1 out of those 3 big plays that we talked about.
If you took the Baker from the Saints game and put him in yesterday's game, they stand a very good chance of beating the Lions, right?
Yeah.
They just do, but that wasn't the case.
Lucas Pettis, thank you for the $4.99 super chat, asks, I asked this yesterday, but how long will it take them to start D. Delaney over Ryan Neal? Yeah, Ryan Neal's persona non grata amongst fan performance. Todd Bowles did say today that the first touchdown, a lot of people made mistakes, wasn't just Ryan Neal,
Yeah.
but Todd Bowles is always privy to take care of his guys and not throw them on the bus. The second one, simply, you said it before, just get your head around, man. I mean, this they teach to high school kids. Just get your head around, and that's a PBU. I mean, his hand was touching
His hands right there.
Not even without even looking up. So imagine if he did actually get to see it first. So
yeah, you're right. I mean, you got to have eyes on the ball. The receiver will tell you. I mean, this goes back to Pop Warner. I was teaching my little kids this. I mean, the receiver will tell you when the ball is coming, right? It's like if you're in the trail position, all of a sudden you see the eyes get big and you see the hands come up, the ball's right there. Turn around and make a play, right? That's all you got to do. He was in position to. And it's like, are you going to be a playmaker or just a guy? You're one or the other. You're either a jag or you're a playmaker. And we've seen Ryan Neal, unfortunately, be a jag too many times. And D. Delaney, for his faults, right? I mean, he's an undrafted free agent too, just like Ryan Neal. But Delaney's got a little something. I don't know if he's got like a little Keith Tandy to him, right? He makes enough splash plays to get you interested. You probably don't want him in your starting lineup, but when he's in there, and Matt, Ryan Neal was out for the entire New Orleans Saints game. He got hurt in the first series.
He was.
D. Delaney played really, really credible, not incredible, but credible ball. And why not? This guy can play free safety, strong safety, nickel corner, outside corner in a pinch. I want to see more D. Delaney. This is the guy that's buried in the depth chart that is tied for your interception lead with 2. Get him out there. Let's see what he can do.
And we've said this before, but Todd Bowles loves versatility, and
I
think that's an argument that D. Delaney gives you a little more versatility than what Ryan Neal has brought so far.
Couple quick super chats here,
yeah. Bucs Basement, thanks for the $2 super chat. Bucs should ask Pats about Ramondre Stevenson. Patriots are one of those teams that very much could be in a fire sale mode. I mean, they've looked terrible the last 3 weeks, so I mean, definitely something to consider. Cali Bucks, thank you for the $1.99 super chat. And the Bucks have made a lot of trades with the Patriots, mostly over Gronk. But anyway, Cali Bucks says number 1 has meaning. White never deserved the number.
It's the jersey number, right?
Yeah.
Rashad White's number 1. I mean, it's jersey number. I'm not.
I mean, doesn't Turpin wear 1 for the Cowboys, or is he number 9? I can't remember.
I think Devontae Turpin might be number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And he's a specialty guy. So,
yeah.
Bucks Basement, again, thank you for the $5 super chat. Says fans in the stadium were pissed at Bowles, not just the punt on 4th and 2, but also not calling timeout after David's sack in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Todd Bowles hasn't really won over the fan base. I don't know if that's necessarily his fault or people are just going to have an opinion about Todd Bowles to begin with.
I think the other thing too is the Lions were somewhere around midfield. I think they were back in the other side of their territory after the Levante David sack. But I think Bowles was like, all right, I'm happy to get out of here with the game being close. It seems like the Lions are running the clock out. They're not going to run their play. I don't think that Bowles wanted to tempt fate and give Jared Goff another chance to hit Amon-Ra St. Brown for a 15, 17-yard gain. Then all of a sudden you try 52, 55-yard field goal, and then the Lions have some momentum at halftime. So I can't fault Bowles for that one. The 4th and 2, different story, but that one was different.
Sean with the $4.99 super chat says, I think Payne Durham looked pretty good in his abbreviated appearance. What say you? Love the show.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.
If you want to buy into Pro Football Focus grades, which sometimes we do, I think he was only out there 7 plays. And
he played 6 plays, so 11% of the offense. He made a catch in the first quarter.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of an impact you can totally have with.
He had the highest grade on offense. He had like a 90 grade, but it's small sample size. But you know what? Maybe better than David Wells.
David Wells has been a huge negative for the team. I was telling Josh Capo, because I was writing a story recently where I was identifying that, the Bucs offense, like passing yards, it's Mike and Chris way above. And then
Right.
K-Dot was third on the team, not even at 100
Yeah.
receiving yards. And they have 10 less because David Wells had negative 10 receiving yards. He also had a fumble. So, I mean, as long as Payne Durham doesn't do that, he could be dressing every single week. Scott Jacks, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Says, with October 31st, that's Halloween, on the horizon, we Bucs need to start thinking of trades and moves to make us better. Running back, center, safety. Where do we go from here?
I think maybe the most logical move might be running back, but
yeah,
I don't know that Jason Light's going to want to part ways with draft picks. He feels like he's got a hot hand in the draft on some of those day 2 picks, and I'm sorry, day 3 picks. I mean, Jake Camarda. I mean, you're getting a Pro Bowl caliber punter with the 4th round pick. That's pretty damn good. I think there's some upside that you like about guys like Servassier Dennis and Payne Durham that we really haven't seen yet, just because they're so stinking new. Josh Hayes looks like a pretty damn good gunner. We'll see if he develops into anything on defense later in his career, or if he's just like a Ryan Smith special teams gunner, specialty guy. Zion McCollum, Matt, you mentioned it earlier. He's played really, really well. I mean, that's a day 3 steal. So as tempting as it is to part ways to get some immediate help now, maybe for the backfield, it's going to be tough for Jason Light to part ways with some draft picks. But Matt, as you mentioned, and you're right, these next couple games, right? Big Falcons game, right? And then you've got what's the game after the Falcons game?
Buffalo, Thursday night.
Oh yeah, Thursday night. Okay, so those 2 games will, I think, tell you a lot about where this team is headed from a record standpoint. And if they get some momentum, maybe they want to add some insurance, maybe some upgrades. If they split, right, then you're kind of looking like last year, where it's like, we're a game above 500, we're back at 500, we're below 500, we're back to 500, and you end up with an 8-9 record. So these next 2 games will determine a lot about Jason Light in any potential trades, I believe.
Yeah. Next up, sorry. Paul, aka Florida Dreamhouse, our main man.
Thank you.
$5 super chat says, does an improved offensive line improve the running back, or does a better running back make the O-line better? Baker was awful, no doubt, but he isn't the real problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's just a bad game for Baker, and let's see how he bounces back. I mean, you take, again, the Saints game, which was his best game, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, got out of a lot of plays, made some work the red zone, right? All 3 of those touchdowns were inside the 5-yard line, really working the red zone well. That was his best game. This is his worst game. So let's see how he rebounds against the Falcons. I'm a big believer that you have to have a running back that can create on his own. You have to have a running back that has enough speed, tackle breaking ability, or wiggle to get out of a jam. I think any running back, if you block it perfectly, give him an alleyway, can pick up yards, right? I mean, I could do that at 51, probably just a yard or 2. And then I would get in the fetal position because I'm too old to get hit. But the thing is whether it's a Javonte Williams type where you're a little bit of an angry runner, or like Rashad Penny, where you've got some like pure speed and acceleration, kind of like Chase Edmonds has to a degree, where you're an urgent runner, right? I think that the term angry runner gets used a lot because of the whole scepter thing with Kyle Brandt, and it's fun. And I love angry runners like Pacheco, right? In Kansas City's one of those. But you can also be an urgent runner, just have that sense of urgency, that quick acceleration. And I just don't see a back that has angry or urgent in terms of their traits on this roster right now, unfortunately. So I think they need to upgrade at running back. That's been Jason Light Achilles heel all along. I've said it. I am not a Jason Light, butt kisser when it comes to his drafts. I call it like I see it. He has, I think, failed as a guy stocking this team adequately at the running back position throughout his tenure.
I think it's like, when you watch college football, you'll see a lot of big 60-yard runs by the running back. Right. They go untouched into the end zone.
Yeah.
You know why you don't see that as much in the NFL? Because defenses are good, and it's very difficult to do that. And a lot of the times, you're going to get most of your yards after contact or after breaking a tackle at the line of scrimmage. And you need those guys that can kind of get that job done. And I don't want to say the jury's still out on Rachaad White, but Rashad hasn't been living up to the expectations. This is his year-long audition to prove that he can be RB1, and right now he hasn't been proving that that he should be the starting guy for seasons to come for
Yeah.
the Bucs. We got a $10 super chat from Vise. Thank you very much, Vise. If you have another comment, which they do, we'll put up on the screen, which Scott has. And Vise says, Baker isn't a quarterback that can play against better teams. It seems he plays terrible against better teams on both occasions. I mean, that's been the case this season.
Yeah.
And if you want to look at his overall track record, I guess you could be onto something a little bit. He just had that big win against the Steelers in the playoffs, but that was years ago. How much that really holds water now. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point. He's got to play better against the best opponents because, as you said earlier, Scott, you need to have your A game when you play against the best teams in the league. And those two games, Baker certainly did not have his A game.
That's right. The guy that has his A game all the time, folks, is Eric Gross at the Eric Gross Group Realty. They're the official realtor of Pewter Report. And the reason why I keep touting Eric is because he does a great job. He has the team in place to help you win in real estate, because Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group, they're part of the eXp Realty Group. They have a strong team of vendors and a network of over 85,000 agents across the country. So whether you're moving to Florida from out of state, or from the great state of Florida out of state, or around the state of Florida, the Eric Gross Group will turn your dream of buying or selling home into a reality. Their clients are not just transactions, they're lifelong friendships. Eric knows this area like the back of his hand. He's a Tampa native whose father is stationed at the MacDill Air Force Base. So you're going to want him on your side. He's the #1 draft pick. He's the top free agent that you need to sign. Go to housesinfla.com, housesinfla.com. That's the website. Check out their inventory. It's a great website, awesome layout. No matter where you are on your home ownership journey, you're going to feel welcome at the Eric Gross Group. That's the official realtor of Pewter Report. Again, visit housesinflorida.com. And folks, too, I got to tell you about our friends over at Immuni Financial. That's the official financial company of Pewter Report.
At Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you.
And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you? Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it. All right. Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track, so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
Managing your family's wealth means more to Immuni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. With 40 years of experience, let Immuni Financial help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Give them a call at Immuni, 1-800-868-6864. That's 1-800-868-6864, anywhere across the United States, or visit them on the web at immuni.com.
And then also, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media. We are at Pewter Report on X, Facebook, Threads, and Instagram. Then, of course, our YouTube channel, where we have the Pewter Report podcast 4 times a week, along with various other clips. Scott Reynolds with Pewter Pulse, my Pewter Picks and Props, which, by the way, went 2-0 on my Bucs picks, 9-1 on Bucs games this season.
There you go.
That's all on our YouTube channel at Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe this video. It helps us grow our YouTube channel, as we're over 12,200 subscribers, and we're working our way to the big Mike Evans of 13,000.
That's right.
And would love to get there sooner rather than later. So, appreciate all the Pewter people. Great turnout today. As always, hit that like button like Shaggy says.
Yeah, and Shaggy, please email me at sr@pewterreport.com, and also Paul, a.k.a. Florida Dreamhouse, do the same as well. Email me at sr@pewterreport.com, and I'll get you guys contact information sent over to Celsius, and you guys will get your cases of orange Celsius. Thanks for participating last week in our Super Chat contest for, I should say, drawing for those orange cases. And Matt, we'll be back on Wednesday at 4 o'clock with a big game. Bucs, Falcons, all 4 of the teams in the NFC South lost. So the Bucs didn't lose any ground. But with the win on Sunday at Ray J, Matt, the Buccaneers can gain some ground on the Falcons and the other teams in the NFC South.
Exactly. Huge game coming up for the Bucs to stay in first place. Looking forward to breaking down Bucs versus Falcons on Wednesday. But until then, that's going to do it for us on today's show. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you on Wednesday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Peace out.
Out.